Today we are finally going to be looking at a door in the color Royal Navy. So you may notice my swatches are labeled 1 through 12. That is not synonymous with hair levels. I just number the swatches so we can keep track of them throughout the video. Also, my swatches are not virgin hair, so they've been chemically colored, bleached, or treated at some point in their existences. 1 is pink, 2 is a cool tone gray, 3 is a medium natural red, 4 is black, and then 4 to 11 is a range that goes to platinum blonde, and then 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So to start, I will take the color directly from the container and I will apply it to the top of each swatch. Then some people do like to dilute their dyes, so I will do a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. Please keep in mind everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take color differently. Plus, different screens and monitors can make colors look different, so please just use my video as a reference for how this could possibly turn out for you.
I don't think you'd believe how long I felt this way. I'm begging you to stay. And if I could show you, I'd hope that you could see all the possibilities. There could be a place for you and me. And under the stars, you pack up your car, 'cause you're going far away from here. I wish I could stall, but I never call. And you're going all the way this year. If I could tell you, I don't think you'd believe how long I felt this way. I'm begging you to stay.
For the diluted section, we're going to do an 8-to-1 ratio. So that's going to be 1 part of the color to 8 parts diluter. If you're unsure what a diluter is, it's essentially something that lightens the color of a semi-permanent dye. Now, I just use a plain white conditioner as my diluter, but usually, like most brands, will sell their version of a diluter that you can use. They'll have the same consistency as the dye, if that makes you feel more comfortable.
Feel the same. I feel 100 degrees when you call my name. And I don't know what you see. Hope we feel the same.
I'm gonna let this sit for about 2 hours. I will then rinse it out, and when it's dry, I will meet you back here and we can do some comparisons. Alright, so I'm gonna give another quick reminder that my swatches are not virgin hair. Virgin hair tends to be less porous, which means it will struggle sometimes to take and hold on to semi-permanent color. And part of why I say that is because I do see a difference on a majority of my swatches. I think the number 4 black swatch might be the only one that I don't see a difference on. So if I were you, I would definitely do a strand test, especially if your hair leans a little bit darker. So 1 was pink. I was gonna say that the top part looks super dark to the point where it almost looks black, but they actually all pretty much look like that. Maybe in more natural lighting, it would probably look a little bit less black, but it's pretty dark. And also, I did want to say too that the texture is kind of like a gel-like texture if you've never used a door before. So in my experience so far, it is kind of like Splat or the Manic Panic Professionals texture. They're all kind of in that same family. So I think for each swatch, I'm going to talk more so about how it looks over the diluted section, since the top parts basically look black, or at least are super dark. I have noticed that the lighting I'm in currently, like this indoor kind of lighting, will make the swatches look a little bit darker than they appear in more naturally lit environments. So when we do the before and after clips, we might see more of a difference there. So on the diluted section for number 1, it definitely cooled down the dye quite a bit, but not to the point where it looks purple. I would say it still definitely has a blue look to it. It's just when you look at the number 11, the platinum swatch, which I think most brands intend for their dyes to be used over, it just has a slightly more almost like teal undertone versus much more cool over the pink. The number 2 was the gray swatch. Overall, I think it's about the same as the platinum blonde. Interestingly, it might actually be a slight bit more green in undertone versus the number 11, but it's a little bit hard to tell. They seem pretty similar. So I'm gonna group number 3 in with number 5 because the turnout is basically the same. I mean, even on number 6, for the diluted section, there is a difference from before, but I don't know if I'd necessarily say it looks blue. I think the undertone is just a lot more cool and kind of ashy compared to how it was before. And then I don't see a difference on number 4, the black swatch. Number 7 for the diluted section is when we start to actually see some color coming through. It's kind of a big jump between 6 and 7. It's like 6 barely took any color and it just toned some of the undertones out. And then 7, it's not really brown at all anymore. Interestingly, 7, 8, and 9, and 10, I would say they're all kind of similar how they turned out as well. It does get lighter as the swatches get lighter, so 7, the diluted section for 7, is a little bit darker than 8, and then so on and so forth, but it's really not that big of a difference. They all kind of turned out like a smoky teal, I would say, less blue. 11 and 12 is where you get more blue compared to the swatches beforehand, and sometimes there is a difference between the 11 and 12 based off of the undertone, but I actually don't really see a big difference even on the diluted sections. So sometimes when you're doing like blues and purples, toning your hair will help to get a more true color for like what the dye is intended to look like, but I wouldn't say that's necessary here. And if this is a little bit too warm in undertone, which I'm not saying it is a very warm undertone or anything, but I do see just a slight bit of green, just a very, very tiny bit. So you could possibly add a little bit of pink in there to counteract the green in there, but again, do a strand test. So as for comparisons, I actually don't have many in my collection that look like this. A lot of my blues are either a little bit too bright, too light. Undertones won't be quite the same. So my first comparison is going to be my more blue comparison, and then I do have another comparison that I would say is pretty similar and is probably more similar than the first one. So first one is Iroiro in the color Deep Blue. This is comparable to number 12. This is comparable to number 11, number 10, and comparable to number 9. So for my more blue comparison, I was actually between 2 different colors. I was also considering Directions in the color Midnight. And I ultimately didn't go with that one because that one leaned a little bit more cool in undertone. And while the Iroiro Deep Blue does lean a little bit more warm in undertone, it is a lot closer than the Directions is. So if you are looking for one that's even more cool tone than the Adore Navy, I will link the Directions video down below so you can see just how cool tone that one is. Hopefully you can see now with the Iroiro next to this just how dark the Royal Navy is in comparison. I mean, obviously it's dark, but even on 9 and 10, I can still see a lot of blue coming through for the Iroiro. I would also say that the Iroiro isn't quite as muted, so the Royal Navy does lean a little bit more like soft. Iroiro is a little bit more saturated and a tiny bit more warm. The other comparison I wanted to look at today that I think is my most similar is Lunar Tides in the color Magic Shadow. So this is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, and comparable to number 9. All right, I am kind of glad that I compared these. So if you are not aware, Lunar Tides has a line of black dye that has different undertones. So Magic Shadow is their black dye with a blue undertone. And I'm happy to say, I know it probably is not going to pick up on camera, but on the number 11 swatch, I can actually see a little bit more blue coming through on the direct dye portion. But you can see they both are pretty dark, even still. But I thankfully do see a little bit of blue coming through. Magic Shadow is about the same softness, so they're both like muted. But I do see definitely a little bit more green on the Magic Shadow side. So the Royal Navy does lean just a little bit more cool in comparison. When I was looking through the reviews, I don't think I saw any that were super dark like this. So I don't know if it was just my swatches like absorbed really well, or if it's meant to be dark so that it fades into more of a navy blue. I'm not sure, but anybody's experiences are welcome. Now I would like to finally look at the before and after clips, which those, as well as anything after this point in the video, is all going to be done in natural lighting.
If I could tell you, I don't think you'd believe how long I felt this way. I'm begging you to stay. And if I could show you, I'd hope that you could see all the possibilities. There could be a place for you and me. And under the stars, you pack up your car, 'cause you're going far away from here. I wish I could stall, but I never call. And you're going all the way this year. If I could tell you, I don't think you'd believe how long I felt this way. I'm begging you to stay. And if I could show you, I'd hope that you could see all the possibilities. There could be a place for you and me. I feel 100 degrees when you call my name, and I don't know what you see. Hope we feel the same. I feel 100 degrees when you call my name, and I don't know what you see. Hope we feel the same. If I could show you, I'd hope that you would see all the possibilities. And there's a place for you and me.
I hope my video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do brands that do not test on animals. Thank you so very, 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 very much to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.